On the surface, Splatoon is a pretty colorful and childish franchise, but that doesn't mean it's not without its grim aspects. A lot of it is pretty surface level and well known, like how the games are set in a post-apocalyptic Earth, or how Commander Tartar is an omnicidal psychopath. But there's some deeper stuff on that funny old Splatoon iceberg chart. Some notable examples being that the sanitized Octarians are basically zombies, Captain Cuttlefish is racist, and Judd is a war criminal who directly aided in the extinction of mankind. However, there's an entire game mode that's always been a little... That game mode being Salmon Run, baby, woo! I always really liked Salmon Run. It's a really hectic and fast-paced PvE game mode that gives a good break from the standard multiplayer. But since its inception, Salmon Run has obliterated the vibe check and been kind of extremely uncomfortable. First off, you've got the fact that all your customization options, save for your hair and eyes, are gone. You're given a box standard uniform that you can only change the color of if you ever save enough silver scales because Mr. Grizz is a greedy bastard. You don't get to decide your weapon, you're assigned one every wave. The music is a huge change from the normal tone of Splatoon that it gives me whiplash and irreparable spinal damage. It's all foreboding cellos and timpanis, and in Big Run they even sample some bits of multiplayer music in a way that makes the singers sound panicked. But the most glaringly weird thing about Salmon Run is none other than Mr. Grizz and Grizzco Industries. Grizzco is painstakingly designed to come off as an incredibly shady company. The lobby in Splatoon 3 is in a laundromat because money laundering. With Grizzco being such a shady business, the funny bear is likely to get into some corporate controversies, and that is where the Grizzco tapes come in. The Grizzco tapes is a pretty new and hopefully ongoing Please Make More analog horror series based on a franchise for toddlers and babies, and it's very good. The analog horror format is perfect for exploring a darker story around Grizzco, with the original Salmon Run announcement being inspired by old VHS training videos. Today, we're going to be going into the events of the 3 episodes made so far, analyzing them, and going over some fan theories. Huge shout out to Jerm, the incredibly talented creator of the tapes. Haha, get it, Inc? I'm so goddamn funny. And all the commenters helping put this whole story together. With this lengthy-ass pre-word out of the way, let's get into it. The first tape opens with a low droning sound, accompanied by text telling us that this tape is classified property of, quote, a Kai Major investigation team, and that unauthorized viewing is prohibited. I'm sorry for making you all legally liable. This team will be one of the major players in these tapes alongside Grizzco, as the entire series is an archive of one of their investigations into Grizzco's activity. We are then met with a rapid assault of images set to static and the faint sound of the Salmon Run lobby theme. The images include the front of Grizzco Industries in Splatoon 2, some salmonids, and most importantly, repeating text saying, "Where is Kaya?" Kaya will be one of the most important characters in this series. One of the images is also what we can assume to be Kaya herself with her eyes blacked out. We then get a title card, the Grizzco tapes. We hear the same droning sound, with text saying that the businesses of Grizzco Industries have temporarily been halted due to being a major suspect in the disappearance of Kaya Shiryu. The text then fades, and we're told that the whereabouts of Kaya is an ongoing mystery, and that all documents leading to her finding have seemingly vanished with her. New text says that the day following her disappearance would have been her birthday, and she would have turned 15. So this is our plot. A young inkling girl named Kaya is missing, and Grizzco is a major suspect. We know she worked for Grizzco, so they're likely either involved or responsible for her vanishing. Additionally, all records leading to her being gone implies some kind of corporate cover-up. It's reasonable to believe that, with the info we have so far, Grizzco doesn't want anyone to know what happened to Kaya. After this text, the same image of Kaya with her eyes blacked out is shown, along with large text reading "missing" and some general info on her. The image is really unsettling to me, and it's mainly due to the lighting and colors. They're all so harsh and gross looking. It almost reminds me of that Mario Victim 1 image. Fun fact, this picture actually gave me a night terror once. That's not a joke. Here we can see Kaya's date of birth being December 6th, age, sex, race, and some other seemingly unimportant information. The only notable thing here is that she has a scar on her right ear. This seems to be a public service announcement with what sounds like a siren, somebody reading out the info on Kaya and the text scrolling at the bottom. Seems that Kaya's disappearance was a pretty significant media event, at least for a time. Text then fades in of her last known location being redacted. Some more text tells us that Kaya's parents were the ones to initially report her disappearance, 3 days after she first vanished. Kaya's co-workers should have been the first people to report her missing, as they would have been last seen with her. This text seemingly confirms that she went missing during a Salmon Run shift. The next text says that Kaya's co-workers claim to have no recollection of Kaya disappearing. We're then shown the text about Kaya's co-workers being the last people seen with her to drive home how sus this situation is. Keep this all in mind, it'll come up in the next tape. The next set of text is a weird orange color. All throughout these tapes, text randomly changes color. I don't think it means anything, but it's worth pointing out. It's probably just a way to keep the tapes visually engaging, as they're mostly text. The text does, however, confirm that Kaya went missing on a Salmon Run shift, not returning with her crew. She took overtime, staying behind while her crew went back to base. When Kaya's crew returned, sans Kaya, they were interrogated by Grizzco, and her crew confirmed the story. She stayed behind to do some overtime. When Grizzco went to pick her up, she apparently left by the time they got there. We are then told that there was no signed leave. This gives some major insight as to why Grizzco is seemingly trying to bury this incident. It would be a PR nightmare, but I don't believe Grizzco really cares about optics. Mr. Grizz seems like the type to be able to handle bad PR after a worker disappears on the clock. The real reason Grizzco wants this incident gone is because it's a legal nightmare. Kaya, a minor, did not sign a leave for this extremely dangerous work and went missing during a shift. This would absolutely be grounds for completely shutting down Grizzco. We then get the first real scare of the series, followed by what appears to be a camera underwater with text saying there's something in the water. If you have thalassophobia, fuck you. Text then says that the Akai team is no closer to finding Kaya, and that Grizzco has already resumed operations. The police know nothing of her disappearance, the media knows nothing, and Grizzco's business partners know nothing. The tape then says Kaya could be dead. This section of the tape is a little bit after the rest, about a week, as we learn later. The legal and media storm around the disappearance has faded away, and Grizzco can go on business as usual. However, the Akai team is not letting up, as we're then treated to a phone call between an Akai investigator and a Grizzco secretary. First off, I'd like to point out again how great the headshots in this series are. Again, reminding me of that awful, awful Mario image with the dirty colors and harsh lighting. The Grizzco secretary is a Goldie, although I first saw their mouth and the shadow under it as a face, and they just had really big, funny hair. The investigator seems to be some kind of crawfish. It's very hard to tell. The investigator asks the receptionist about the egg harvesting teams at Grizzco, and then about Kaya's disappearance. We learn that Kaya's disappearance happened in the Inkopolis sector of Grizzco's dealings, and that the Inkopolis sector includes the Sockeye, Chum, Coho, Pink, and Chinook units. Chinook being the unit that Kaya was part of. The receptionist tells us that employees are required to sign a waiver before Salmon Run shifts, the waiver including an anonymity pact, so she can't tell the investigator how many employees are in the Chinook unit. This info seems to contradict what we know earlier, that Kaya never signed a leave. This leads me to believe that these waivers were introduced after the Kaya incident to ensure Grizzco would never be legally liable if something similar were to happen. The investigator asks the receptionist what the last run that the Chinook unit went on. We hear some pages flipping before the receptionist responds that it was run 349.12 Polaris on Marooners Bay. The investigator begins pushing about any recent incidents that have happened on salmon runs. and the receptionist says she knows nothing. The investigator gets frustrated, and the receptionist says that these questions are silly, insisting nothing has happened recently and that business is going on as usual. The investigator asks the receptionist to pull up an employee registry and just flat out asks if Kaya Shiryu is on Grizzco's payroll. This is not only a really good thing that good detectives do, but also definitely information that the secretary is allowed to just give out. I might be thinking that the MO of the Akai team here might be contributing to Kaya's continued absence. There is no response from the receptionist for several seconds before the feed cuts to a dial tone, the Grizzco logo, and an automated message saying that Grizzco retains the right to withhold information from the public, and that the receptionist has traded insider information and will be, quote, disposed of immediately. This incredibly grim wording is the last thing we see on this tape. So, a lot of information is given in just 6 minutes, and this video is going to be much longer than I initially thought it would be. The series is off to an incredible start. It scratches a major horror niche that I really love, that being corporate negligence. The idea of a teenager vanishing on the clock of their part-time job is genuinely very scary, especially the fact that her parents are the ones who reported her disappearance. We don't hear a lot about the Inkling's parents in Splatoon, so adding Kaya's parents into the story adds a real kind of human tragedy to it. There's already a lot of contradictions with Grizzco's story, and they seem to know more than they're letting on. All we know for certain is that Grizzco is covering up what actually happened and wants this incident to just quietly fade away. I'm certain that the tapes take place between Splatoon 2 and 3, and so the thing in the water is very likely a Kohozuna. It'd be a very fun prelude to Splat 3 that adds a lot of horror to the new King Salmonid. We don't know for sure what the thing in the water is, but the best guess we have right now is Kohozuna. The last image we see being the Grizzco logo with an incredibly eerie message is a great visual that tells us that they're definitely the villains in the story. Keep in mind Grizzco's official account of events as we go into the second tape. Whoa, it's Flesh Me with my shitty laptop webcam and actual microphone. So this ended up being a much longer project than I intended for it to be. Even though this video is only like 11 minutes long, it took me like 3 months to actually make this, largely due to school and general lack of motivation. So I'm going to be splitting this into 3 parts for each episode of the Grizzco tapes, just to make the workflow a little more manageable for me and my not phenomenal work ethic. But got a hair in my mouth. This is unscripted, this afterword, in case you couldn't tell. But I hope you enjoyed this first part, and hopefully the next 2 won't take quite as long to get out.